Hello, Flat Earth researchers, debaters and debunkers. It's a wonderfully clear, starry night above Phuket here. And good to point out something that doesn't happen, that should do, if we are on a spinning ball Earth and that we are looking at stars that are great distances apart, and that's parallax. Now, for some reason, people talk about parallax as being some kind of proof that we are on a globe, but they're talking out their asses because we just don't see any parallax, when, in fact, we should do, because parallax occurs when we look at objects that are of different distances from us. You've got something in the foreground, something in the background, and beyond. So it's when we have things that are varying distances from us that we do in fact get parallax, but we don't see any. Okay, it's perfectly understood that the stars are very far away, regardless of how close they might be, but what we seem to see up there is stars that are about all about the same height above the Earth, in what might be some kind of layer of stars or whatever. We do not see any evidence whatsoever that we have one star that is relatively close, whether you want to talk in terms of hundreds, thousands or millions of miles, but the next star that we see should be several more million miles away from that one. So we should in fact see some parallax, especially if we are on an Earth that's turning. And we should see the paths of these stars cross. They should go behind each other. In fact, the night sky would be a total mess if all the stars were of different distances from the Earth. We would definitely get a large amount of parallax, but we really don't see any. And those people that claim there is parallax are only repeating the claim that's apparently made with very high precision instruments. And of course, things like the air can get in the way, and there's no way of ever confirming that. It's just one of those things that's oft repeated by people who wish to defend their belief in the globe with just another explanation that is no way verifiable whatsoever. So yeah, just think about that, the fact that when we do look at objects that are close and far away and even further away, we get parallax, but we do not ever see any parallax with the stars, whatever they are and how far away they are from us. Remains a total mystery, but to claim that this light up here is some kind of planet or whatever it might be, another sun, it's just stupid. It is a light in the sky, but that's about as much as we know about these things. Even if you have a degree in astronomy and you're allowed to look at them through very expensive telescopes, there is nothing about looking at the stars that tells us anything about any alleged shape, dimension or movement of the Earth that we are on. It remains a complete mystery, and I'm quite happy with that, and there's no need for anyone to have to come up with any alternative numbers, models or figures. To do so is asinine, because it's quite obvious that no one's got a clue, and we might not ever know what these stars really are. So it's all completely open to interpretation, which of course is what's done to give us this heliocentric spinning globe model that doesn't have any basis in reality whatsoever. Defies physics, defies observations. It's all just compartmentalized stories that do not have any basis in reality. I'm going to use the two eggs on the tabletop here as a demonstration of parallax, and to show how when we look up at the night sky and we see stars in fixed constellations passing over our heads, this is showing us that the stars are all at relatively the same height above the Earth, and they are very close. The parallax, or difference in parallax, would be the widening or closing of the apparent gap between the two objects as we observe them. And we can see that with one object far away and one closer, yet still being far away from both those objects, only the slightest movement on our part appears to close or widen the gap between them. If we turn, we get a similar effect. Okay, so this is just the same as on an observer looking up from the Earth at stars passing overhead. If those stars were very far away from each other, millions and billions of miles and millions of miles away from us, then we should see parallax with the slightest movement. But we don't. So let's see how it looks when we put two eggs side by side. So now the eggs are side by side and about the same distance apart as they were relative to each other just now. And if we imagine that these are a pair of stars that we are looking up at from the Earth, and we move, or the sky moves, we see no difference in parallax, the apparent distance. There is no shortening or widening of that gap between the two stars represented by the eggs. Also, we can turn and we do not get that effect. So what does this tell us? This tells us that when we look at stars above our heads and we see no parallax as they move or we move, it is because they are all at the same relative height from the Earth and the observer. Simple, practical demonstration. And when we zoom in on these two eggs, then of course that's when we see an apparent widening of the gap, just as I have shown with recent videos of the stars. The further away those eggs are, the less of a difference we would see in the apparent gap between them as we zoomed in. Quite simple, practical demonstration of how we are living on a flat Earth with the stars very close and in the same layer above our heads. Thank you very much. Here's my Sony Handycam capturing stars quite happily. That's another thing we never see from any pictures taken from space. A lot of people like to point flat earthers to the Japanese weather satellite taking pictures every 10 minutes of the Earth from a million miles away. And of course, we never see any stars there. And people are so quick to point out, it's always the same excuse. There is no other excuse apart from exposure issues. Now, when you consider that the Japanese are the best camera makers in the world, and they send up a satellite to capture the Earth's weather, it really makes no sense that they send something up there that doesn't have the ability to capture stars, or even lightning, or even the city lights. We just never see it. Same with the ISS footage. There are stars in any one night. If you spend the whole night looking up at the night sky, you will see shooting stars. No doubt about it. They arc all the way across the sky. So why don't we ever see any of that from ISS footage or satellite imagery? In this day and age, in 2016, with cameras, off-the-shelf cameras that can capture and adjust their exposure in an instant, there is no excuse for not being able to see the stars. And of course, parallax is another issue. If each of these stars is millions of light years apart from each other, then we would see a great deal of parallax. Star trails would be impossible. And if you want to argue about star trails going around different directions in the northern or southern hemisphere, it just depends which way you're looking. And as usual, if you can perceive perspective, it's very easy to perceive that the stars closer to you are high in the sky and they make longer trails. The stars further away from you are closer to the horizon and they make shorter trails. It's as simple as that. If you are able to disassociate the block in one's mind that is caused by the ridiculous idea that we're on a spinning ball. Thank you very much.